So every year during the entire month of October, I have a tradition of watching horror movies, because just watching horror movies on Halloween isn't enough for me. Starting on my horror series, I'll be recommending some Japanese horror movies for you to check out. Japanese horror, or J-horror, has had a massive influence on the West, resulting in many remakes of classic J-horror movies. These remakes are nowhere as good as their originals, and perhaps that's because the Japanese just know how to scare us better. Anyway, here's my list for best J-horror movies for you to watch this Halloween season. Confessions was directed by Tetsuo Nakashima. This psychological thriller is about a grieving mother turned cold-blooded avenger, with a twisty master plan to pay back children that are too young to be prosecuted, and whom were responsible for her daughter's tragic death. This is a pretty disturbing revenge movie without being overly violent, and instead depicts a teacher using psychological warfare on her students. It's also pretty fast-paced, and it's a really well-made film that remains gripping throughout. Definitely needs more attention, and I'm not sure why more people don't talk about it. Ichi the Killer follows a sadomasochist Yakuza enforcer named Kakahara as he searches for his missing crime boss, the only person who can give him the most pleasurable pain. He soon comes across Ichi, a repressed psychotic killer who may be able to inflict levels of pain that Kakahara has only dreamed of achieving. This is an ultra-violent, disgusting movie, but it's one I've come to love. I watch it almost every year. When I first watched it, I walked away just thinking it was just an over-the-top disturbing movie. But I couldn't stop thinking about the psychotic character Kakahara. Despite being despicable, he was also very charismatic. It was no doubt the influence for Heath Ledger's Joker. The over-the-top nature of the film may also overshadow its incredible filmmaking techniques and camera work that any fan of film can admire. But I do kinda laugh at the thought of an uptight film scholar just sitting down and studying this movie. If you have the stomach for it, definitely check it out. Jigoku, also known as Sinners of Hell. Jigoku is a film that provides viewers with just about the most pitiless depiction of hell that cinema has ever seen. It's technically Buddhist's version of hell, which is kinda like the Western version, only with more lotus flowers. The film begins a little slow, with the cast characters engaging in murder, adultery, and vengeance. Things, however, get more interesting once the characters start to die. Shiro is the closest thing we have in this movie to a hero. He goes to hell where he finds out that he has a daughter who is drifting down the river to the underworld. It becomes the father's quest to navigate hell and save his daughter's spirit from a terrible fate. Films don't get much bleaker than Jigoku, and while the best part about the film is its last 40 minutes that take place in hell, it's still worth sitting through its slow beginning just to get there. The film has achieved classic status thanks to its bizarre horror visuals that you really have to see to believe. You won't soon forget this vision of hell. If you think you've seen Strange, you've never experienced Obayashi's House. It's loony, hilarious, and endlessly creative. House is definitely in the running for the strangest movie of all time, telling the story of a schoolgirl named Gorgeous and her classmates who decide to spend time at her aunt's country home. The aunt is very welcoming, but things quickly start to get weird. We soon learn that the aunt is actually dead, Her cat is evil, the house is haunted, and they all want to eat the girls alive. Carnivorous pianos, man-eating lamps, blood surfing tatami mats, and flying heads are just a few of the batshit crazy sights that House has in store for you. Whether or not you will like the film is impossible to guarantee, but I do think it's a movie that all serious film buffs need to seek out. You will never forget the first time you saw House. Legendary horror director Hideo Nakata, famous for Ringu, returns to direct the adaptation of another Suzuki horror story. A tale about a divorcee and her child moving into a creepy apartment with a leak upstairs. After investigating, the mother uncovers a mystery about a missing child in the building. Then her own child goes missing, and the search brings the mother to a vacant, leaking apartment. Walter is seen throughout the film creating an unpredictable uneasiness, and it's no surprise that its role in Japanese folk myth is as a portal through which souls could travel to the world of the dead. Even weirder is this film's similarities to the 2003 real-life mystery of Eliza Lamb. While not being the scariest J-horror on this list, Dark Water is nonetheless an expertly made horror film, remaining interesting and having spine-chilling moments throughout. Dark Water, like Ringu and so many other J-horror films, was remade by Hollywood. The remake was directed by Walter Salles and starring Jennifer Connelly. The remake, however, doesn't quite measure up to Nakata's film, but it's still a competent little horror movie if you want to check it out. Pulse is a ghost story on an epic scale. It's about the angry spirits of the dead finding a way into our world and overloading our reality. A story that might have been about personal life and death is instead made apocalyptic in the hands of Kurosawa, a director who by now was widely recognized as one of the finest horror filmmakers around. Pulse is a creeping terror, mixing technological fears that were common in J-horror with Kurosawa's own anxieties about connection and disconnection. The way Kurosawa builds dread in Pulse is masterful, and this film has some of the scariest moments on this list. I still can't get the scene out of my head about the Forbidden Room. Something unbelievably happens there, that it alone makes this movie worth watching. That's not to say there aren't other scary moments in it too. The incredible score also helps to make you feel creeped out and adds to those scary scenes. There are moments in the film where it's kinda hard to keep track of the multiple characters, and it does drag a bit towards the end, but don't let that stop you from witnessing one of the more scary J-horror films. The Audition was directed by the great Takashi Miike. This film is about a widowed man that takes on an offer to screen girls at a special audition, which was arranged by his friend to help him find a new wife. The one he fancies is not who she appears to be, after all. This movie affected me in a strange way. When I first watched it, I was left disturbed, but shrugged it off as just thinking it was just a really messed up movie. I didn't think much about it, but after a few months it hit me, and I was having some pretty messed up nightmares about this film. Then I thought more about it, and yeah, this movie was scary as hell, especially the character Asami, and that creepy noise or phrase that she keeps repeating. The fact that it gave me a delayed effect, like some traumatic event, is enough to recommend this as a great horror film. This is a film you won't forget, and definitely what you should think of in relation to J-horror. It's about a teacher from Tokyo that ventures into a desolate sandy village, looking for an insect which will get him famous. When he misses his bus, he's offered refuge in a house that's in a sandpit, and is only accessible by a ladder. In the house, he finds a woman whose family was killed by a sandstorm, and she has to shovel sand every night, or else she'll be swallowed by the sand. When the teacher goes to leave, he realizes that the rope is gone, and now he is stuck there. This is a very imaginative and visual experience with a deeper meaning about the human connection, and one I'd recommend just on that. But the cinematography and score alone make it a contender for J-horror. The sand is a real villain in this movie, and never before have I seen sand become something that is as menacing as Michael Myers. With its unpredictable nature, one minute it is calm, and the next it is exploding with deadly movement, swallowing anything in its path. The excellent score by Takemitsu does an excellent job of always making you feel uneasy and unsure. I'll also add that this movie is twice as scary for anyone that doesn't like the texture of sand, because there's clever close-ups that are done on purpose to make the audience feel like they are right there with the characters in the film, trapped in the sandpit. Kuroneko, also known as Black Cat, is about two women that are raped and killed by samurai soldiers. Soon they reappear as vengeful ghosts who seduce and brutally murder the passing samurai. It was directed by the great Kaneto Shindo. This film is filled with haunting visuals and murderous ghosts that move with creepy, unnatural movements. It's a perfect movie for any fan of samurai or ghost stories set in the medieval time period. Based on the Koji Suzuki novel and directed by Hideo Nakata, this is the Stephen King of Japanese horror. Ringu is best known for crafting the formula on which many J-horror imitators would be based on. It also spawned many sequels, crossover events, and remakes in Hollywood, South Korea, and as a TV miniseries. Some of these follow-ups were pretty bad, but some were legitimately solid films. But let's take a step back and look at the film that started it all, telling the tale of a cursed videotape that summons a ghost girl to kill the viewer 7 days after watching it. It's a sort of urban legend type story that was made for movies. It's weirder and different from the American Gore Verbinski remake, which I'll add is the best J-horror remake by far, and it's a rare case where it might actually be scarier than the original. The original Ringu is a slow burn horror, and it's about trying to outlast a curse. It has a few scary and one absolutely terrifying moment, but what makes it so iconic is the fact that it's also a really good movie, and it deserves the recognition that it gets. Ju-on, also known as The Grudge, was directed by Takashi Shimizu. Taking place in Japan when a volunteer social assistant is assigned to visit a family, she is cursed and chased by two revengeful fiends. Kayako, a woman brutally murdered by her husband, and her son Toshio. Each person that lives in or visits the haunted house is murdered or disappears. This is one of the most well-known J-horror films, and it's always been one that's freaked me out the most. The janky and unnatural movements of the ghosts is beyond creepy. And let's not forget about that cracking noise or whatever sound they make. It's definitely a sound you'll hear in the dark when you're all alone, maybe even weeks after seeing this. For some reason, I've always found ghosts with pale white skin and long black hair terrifying. It's the first thing I always picture hiding in a creepy dark basement or room. It's definitely a great movie though. and has some legitimately scary moments. Perfect Blue was directed by the legendary Satoshi Kon. It heavily influenced Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan. It's about a pop singer that gives up her career to become an actress, but she slowly goes insane when she starts to be stalked by an obsessed fan and what seems to be a ghost of her past. Perfect Blue really is ahead of its time. It fits in perfectly with today's pop stars and celebrity culture, and has to do with the psychology of oneself becoming lost in reality to their celebrity persona. Things go from bad to worse, and there's some pretty unnerving scenes and terrifying visuals throughout. It is a clever film that needs multiple viewings to understand all of its deeper meanings. It's a horror anthology set in Japan's past, from probably the country's angriest political filmmaker, Masaki Kobayashi, famous for The Human Connection. The first story of the anthology has similarities to the movie Ugetsu, as it's about a samurai that abandons his wife to marry a rich woman. When he returns to his wife, he finds things have changed unexpectedly and in dark ways. The second story is a visually vibrant tale about a woodcutter played by Tetsuo Nakata, who is lost in the blizzard and is saved by a spirit who asks him to make a deal. Kwaidan is worth watching for the third story alone. It's about a blind monk unknowingly spending time with ghosts every evening. The fourth story involves a samurai who sees this ghostly reflection in a cup of tea. Kwaidan might not appeal to horror hounds that demand fast-paced gore or bunches of scares, but as a film itself, it's pretty tough to beat. It's also beautiful to look at, with expertly made cinematography. Kwaidan is one of the best examples of classic Japanese cinema, and highly recommended to those in the mood for something stylish and eerie. Kwaidan translates to ghost stories, and the movie went on to win multiple rewards, including the Oscar for the Best Foreign Movie in the Oscars for the 1966 Academy Awards. Kwaidan is recognized as one of the most beautiful films ever, and one of the most important films in Japanese cinema. "1964 must have been a great year for Japanese cinema, as two classics, Onibaba and Lady in the Dunes, both released. Both films are similar in that their environments are both incredible and horrifying. The tall grass works as an ominous presence, going from calm to violent and glowing. Anything can hide in this tall grass, and it gives a surreal feeling unlike any other film. Onibaba was directed by Kenido Shindo, and is about a woman and her daughter-in-law that make a living during wartime medieval Japan by killing retreating and wounded samurai that happen upon their tall grass. They strip the bodies before tossing them into a pit and sell their belongings for a living. Things get weird though when the mysterious samurai wearing an Oni mask appears. It's inspired by the classic No Theater, featuring the legendary Hanya mask, worn by an Onibaba, which translates to Demon Woman. Hanya mask is creepy because its expression changes based on the angle you look at it. This is one haunting movie, and it's one of my favorites. It's even more effective watching it on a stormy night. I'll never forget the first time I casually put this on, not thinking I'd finish it, but ended up loving every minute of it, and now owning it. Be sure not to miss this classic. Last on this list, we have Tetsuo the Iron Man, a movie you basically have to see to believe. Shot on a low budget by the eccentric director Shinya Tsukamoto, the low budget actually complements the movie, making it appear like a surreal nightmare. A nightmare is the best way to describe this horrifying movie, and if I had to compare it to anything else, I'd probably say it's like David Lynch's Eraserhead. What I also like about it is it isn't just a bunch of surreal nonsense without any kind of rhyme or reason. There is a plot here, and it involves a fetishist that enjoys sticking metal into his body, whom runs into the street and gets hit by a car. The driver of the car is a salaryman and somehow gets infected by the spirit of the metal fetishist that he ran over, resulting in him growing metal out of his body, slowly transforming his body and sanity into a metal monster, Tetsuo the Iron Man. It reminds me of The Fly and how we watch Jeff Goldblum's character slowly change into this disgusting monster. If I had to interpret this movie, I'd say it's about the anxieties of living a contemporary life, but you can add your own interpretations as well. I also see it as a study on technological anxiety and the fear of having technology replace the biological body. It's definitely not a movie for the faint of heart, considering it has a lot of disturbing visuals involving full-on metal erotica. But if you can stomach it, you'll be rewarded with clever directing and camera work focusing on beautiful shots of metallic insanity. The directing also does a great job at capturing a sense of paranoia and disorientation. Objects and people move in a claymation-style fashion, making the nightmare seem ever so real. Check it out if you dare, but don't say I didn't warn you. So that concludes my list of best J-horror films for you to watch this Halloween. If there's any others that you like, please leave them in the comments. J-horror greatly influenced Western filmmakers, and it's no wonder why. J-horror is absolutely terrifying. They know how to get under our skin or freak us out, especially when we try to go to sleep at night. J-horror is the go-to for horror fans, and one that I'm glad I was able to explore. Thanks for watching.